Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're going to see how to convert between CSV and JSON using JavaScript. So chances are you've probably dealt with CSV data at some point or another. It's often used in reporting purposes, but inside of your application it's never technically the easiest format to work with. So especially in JavaScript where it's a lot easier to work with JSON data instead. So we're going to be looking at first importing CSV data, then we're going to work with it as JSON, and then we're going to re-export it as CSV. So as you can see, I do have my terminal open. We will be creating a new project. I'm going to create a new project on my desktop. I'll call it, let's call it CSV project. And I'm going to navigate into it. And we're going to initialize a new Node.js project. So I'm going to say npm init-y. And that'll leave us with a package.json file. What I want to do is I want to install two more dependencies. I want to say npm install. I want to say CSV to JSON, which is going to do the conversion from CSV to JSON. And then I want to install another library, which is going to be responsible for JSON to CSV, so to convert it backwards. So I'm going to say JSON to CSV, and I'm going to say -- save. So with those two packages installed or downloaded, so our project directory looks like this in my terminal. What I want to do is I want to create another file. I'm going to call it app.js. This is going to be where we add all of our application code. So let's go ahead and start by we are going to create another file actually. So we want to create a CSV file because this is the CSV file that we're going to load. So I'm going to call it, let's say touch, and I'm going to say maybe source.csv. So this will be our source file. Now let's go ahead and open it up in a text editor. I'm going to be using Atom by GitHub, but feel free to use whatever is most convenient for you. So inside of the source CSV file, let's go ahead and populate this file. Let's go ahead and use the scenario that maybe this is a shopping list or you work for an organization that has products. So chances are you have a SKU, you have a title of the product, maybe this is particularly game or video game information, so maybe you have hardware information. And then price. So those are the headings. And for data, maybe our first SKU is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe the next SKU, because this is a video game, I'm going to say it's Hollow Knight. And that's for a lot of consoles, but let's go ahead and say that this is in particular for Nintendo Switch. And we're just going to say it's $15.99. And likewise, maybe we do another SKU. Maybe this is 4, 5, 3, 2, 1. Maybe this is Dark Souls Remastered. And then let's go ahead and say that this is also for Nintendo Switch. Let's go ahead and say that this is $39.99. So this is just some sample data. It's kind of meaningless, but at least we have something to work off of. So that's our source data. If I go into the app.js file, this is where we actually include our code to work with this data. So first of all, I'm going to say constant. I'm going to say CSV to JSON. And I'm going to say equals require CSV to JSON. I'm going to say constant JSON to CSV equals require JSON to CSV. And then finally, I'm gonna reference the file system because we need a way to load from the file system. So I'm gonna say constant. You can call it fs. I'm gonna call it file system equals require. And I'm gonna say fs. So fs is actually already part of Node, so we don't need to download any kind of dependencies to use it. So the first step is we want to load this source file that we just created. So we can say CSV to JSON, and I'm going to say from file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, because it's in our relative path, I'm going to say source.csv. And this is a promise. So when the promise resolves, I'm going to say the source file. We're going to be left with JSON actually. And we want to add to this file. So source is JSON. It's just a JavaScript object. I could print it out if I wanted to, which let's go ahead and do that. So console.log, I'm going to say source, and then I'm going to add something to this source. So I'm going to say source.push, and I'm going to add another product, so a third product. So I'm going to say SKU. Let's go ahead and say that this SKU is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's go ahead and say that the title, let's go ahead and say this is Fortnite. And for the hardware, again, I'm gonna keep up the trend of Nintendo Switch. And then for the price, think technically it does have a price in the store, but we're going to go ahead and just say that it's $0 because you can download it as well. All right, so we've pushed something to the source. If I wanted to, let's go ahead and run that. It shouldn't show this, but at least it should show what our source is. So I'm going to open up my terminal again. I'm going to say node app.js. And it printed out the array of objects because that's what it converted to from CSV. So each line is an object in that array. All right, so we pushed it to the array, this third item. Now we want to resave it as CSV. So what I can do is I can say constant, I can say CSV equals JSON to CSV. I'm going to provide it the source. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide each of the possible headers for this source file. So it's going to be fields. And this is an array where the array order does matter because that's going to represent the order of the headings, so the columns. So I'm going to say the first one is SKU, the second one is title, the third one is hardware, and the fourth one is going to be price. So that looks good. Now let's go ahead and actually write it to the file system because that all it's going to do is it's going to create kind of like a string for us. That CSV variable. So what I want to do is I want to say file system dot write file sync. You could do async as well. It's up to you. I'm going to save it to a file. I'm going to call it destination.csv. So that way we can compare that our two CSV files are now different. And I'm going to say CSV, which is that new CSV file. Now if I wanted to, I'll run it. Node app.js. It errored. Let's see why it errored. So JSON to CSV is not a function. So I actually realized I just made a mistake. So I required it on line 2, but it's actually .parse. So this is what we want. We want JSON CSV to be JSON to CSV .parse. So I save it and I try to rerun it again. Node app.js should work this time. So it didn't error out. It looks like it created a destination file. I look at it, and it looks like it did work. So I have my first two items, which I had originally added. It added quotations to them because technically that's the best approach, just in case you have characters that might mess up the delimitation. But we have this third item, which is what we added through JSON, so through JavaScript. So it was very easy to work with in that sense. And you could have much more complex examples, but at least you get the idea when it comes to what you can accomplish converting between these two formats.